Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever it may be for you. My name is Lewis and welcome back to my channel. This is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeating visitor, welcome back. So today, I thought I'd go through everything that I've read in my creative writing degree. I may have been at uni for 6 years, but I've done pretty much every subject available in my creative writing because I'm a triple major, for those of you who don't know. First, I'll go through what I've read this week, and then we'll go through and we'll talk about everything that I had to read. I don't have everything because a lot of it was like printed out short stories, and I don't know where they are. But I've got a lot of the books there here, so let's go through it. So this week, the first book I read was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, the illustrated version by Chris Riddle. I talked about this a few weeks ago, I think. Love Chris Riddle. I love his illustrations. Huge fan of the Edge Chronicles. I've got a framed photo or framed print of Chris Riddle's up on my wall. So yeah, this is a delightful, whimsical book to get through now. Week 7 of the statewide lockdown, well, citywide lockdown. But yeah. Next up we have Airman by Owen Colfer. I think I read this in primary school potentially. 12, maybe first start of high school. I thought it was fantastic. I low-key think this is better than the Artemis Fowl books. It's just this great YA, kids YA, what, middle grade, I guess, what other people would say middle grade. Kids YA. It's this fantastic story. It's about this guy, his name is Connor. He is framed for a crime, and then has to work his way out of prison. His family think he's dead. This great thing of, because it's all about the age of invention as well, so there's flying machines and international politics. Yeah, I wish this had a sequel. Otherwise, I wish it would be adapted into something, because I think it'd be really good. And really, anything is better than the Artemis Fowl film. Then I received and read Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. For those of you who haven't heard about this book, which I think very rare because this book is insanely popular at the moment. It's about this coffee shop that is in Tokyo, and you're allowed to chat with anyone back or forward in time as long as A, they've been in the shop, B, you can't influence any actions, and C, you have to finish your chat before your coffee gets cold, otherwise you get cursed and have to live out as a ghost there. I think it was a really beautiful story. I think the final one, where one of the characters, her name is Kay, I believe. Yep, Kay goes to meet her daughter in the future. It was just so beautiful, and I think this is a fantastic read. And it's got that wonderful Japanese delightful whimsy. And the last one I read was the Vanaranovich Novella for the year, What Abigail Did That Summer. Huge fan of the Rivers of London books. I've got all of them. Been a massive fan. Yeah, this scratched the itch. I'm really waiting for the next one because the last one was really good. So, enough about me rambling about what I read this week. So, let's talk about my creative writing degree. So, I've done, how many subjects is it? Too many, some would say. So, part of the creative writing degree that I do is you have to you do theory work, which is combined with other creative arts majors, so drama, theatre, performance, music, etc. But then you also do specific creative writing stuff. In your second year, if you're doing a Bachelor of Arts and your creative writing is a major, you're offered the choice of drama, dramatic studio, narrative studio, or poetic studio. Because I'm a creative arts degree, I had to do all three. So to start off with, I had to read Representation by Stuart Hall, Jessica Evans, and Sean Nixon. I didn't use this as much as A, I should have, or B, the uni made it out that I would be using this. But it's a good thing to have, especially in terms of like modern works of representation and how to write like theoretically about representation. I think this was from one of my first year classes way back when well, you can see the photo there. But yeah, it's okay. Then for that, then I had another. Oh, sorry, I thought I had these organised. I don't have these organised. We have, who's this? Yes, Spirit by Donna Abila. This was, no, that was third year, my mistake. So first year. Now, normally, when it comes to novels, I usually finish all of them, but for whatever reason, during this particular part of my first year, a few of them I never got around to finishing. I'm planning on coming back to them at some point, but ultimately it was a week by week discussion. Didn't get it all done. Got most of it done, but yeah. So we have Charles Dickens by Oliver Twist. My first Dickens experience I ever had. I got 45 pages in, which is really shameful for me. I don't remember much of it. I think I remember thinking it was okay, but it didn't really grip me. I'm sure if I went back, as an older man now, I'm sure I'd love it, or I could hate it. Not sure. We have the True History of the Kelly Gang by Peter Carey. This one was just turned into a short series, I think, with Australia's own Ben Mendelsohn. This was an interesting book to read because it was told from the perspective of Ned Kelly, and obviously he wasn't very educated. So as opposed to a lot of historical fiction that I've read, at least, there was that sort of language where it was words spelt incorrectly. There wasn't a lot of punctuation. It was a bit difficult to get into at first, but by the end of the book, you're really rooting for it. It really paints a picture of Ned Kelly. That's, well, Ned Kelly is a weird icon to have for Australiana. He's a bushranger. I felt it really brought out an interesting perspective of him. A bit like the film with Heath Ledger that came out a while ago. Then we have Anton Chekhov's plays. We only had to do Uncle Vanya, which was interesting. Before I read Uncle Vanya, my only other experience with Russian plays was when myself, my father, and my uncle went along to the Sydney Opera House to watch a performance of Beethoven's Ninth, I believe. I was like 10 or 11. And as like a first sort of not encore, like a first act, they had some Russian lyric theatre, I think. I fell asleep through that. Ended up waking up just at the end of Beethoven, so I sort of missed it all, which was fairly annoying, but hey, it is what it is. I thought Uncle Vanya was okay. Nothing too exciting. I will go back and read the rest, I think. Then we have Hamlet. Big old Willie Shakes himself. Huge fan of Shakespeare. I've been to the Globe. I saw a version of Much Ado About Nothing when I was there in 2017. I think Shakespeare's fantastic. I don't like how they teach Shakespeare in schools, however, where it's like, finish up to Act 4, wherever, where it's, you should be up on stage, you should be talking it, you should be reading it, because it's actually really funny. If you haven't seen the Macbeth version by Alex Kurzel and with Michael Fassbender, I think that's phenomenal. But yeah, Shakespeare, good. This class was a text and context class, I believe, and it was very much an introduction to getting into the context of writing and then what writers were talking about and wrote about, given their particular historical context. We also have, which was I think the week 2, sorry, ignore that, I was a bit more destructive in my early age. Week 2, I think this was, the Odyssey by Homer. Now, fun fact about Homer. Homer may not have been the person who originally wrote down this and the Iliad. However, we think Homer was the person who spoke it the best because they didn't write down a lot of things. It was more that oral tradition. So this is the Penguin Classics version, translated by E.V. Ryu and D.C.H. Ryu. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Could be wrong. Probably wrong. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I enjoyed Assassin's Creed Odyssey as well. I look forward to doing the Iliad at some point. We also had The Grapes of Wrath, which I did not finish. I read 200 pages the day before, hoping I could get it done because I once finished Mistress of the Empire by Remedy Feist and Jenny Wirtz in like a day, and that's like 900 pages. I thought, you could smash this out, Lewis. Lewis could not smash this out. I got up to the bit where I don't remember where I got up to, but there was a chapter 15 it was. There was the chapter where they had to bury the dog, and I was almost crying on the train, which was an interesting experience. But I was enjoying it. I've never felt, I felt a need to go back, but I haven't felt it strong enough that I'll be going back, if you know what I mean. But it was a good read. It was a good thing to talk about. We also have another Steinbeck. Steinbeck's very popular. Funny about that. Of Mice and Men. This one I did finish. If I hadn't finished this, well, I mean, what a waste, am I right? Not much to say about this one. It's a classic for a reason. It's a fun read. Yeah. And then for the end of first year, we also had Mullumbimby by Melissa Lucashenko. I think she was a former UOW student, or she knows a lot of people who are on the creative writing faculty. This one I struggled with. I got a chapter in, and I just wasn't vibing it at all. I do want to go back and finish it, but I'm not a huge fan of Australian fiction at the best of times, and I'm, as you can see, big genre fiction kind of guy. And then a lot of the stuff at creative writing, at least for UOW, when I was going through it, which is a while, it was more contemporary sort of fiction, or basically no fantasy and sci-fi, which is upsetting. And then for second year, for me, you got to do 2 context classes, so theory, and then you also do the 3 studio classes, which is dramatic, narrative, and poetic. So we've got nope, wrong play. That's a third year one. So we have Donna Obila's Short Circuit. Donna Obila is a tutor I've had on campus. You know how it is. You write a book and you want some royalties, so you said it's a prescribed text. You know, it is what it is. It's academia. I really liked working with Donna. I think she was a really good tutor. Her plays were okay. Not much to say about that. We also have, from the Poetic Studio, we have Incarnadine by Mary Szybist. This is not where I thought it was going to be going. I know there is the big religious iconography, but I didn't really see that until I bought it and was reading it. A lot more religious iconography than I thought. A bit like the Moonfire Monologues and the Apricot Memoirs by Tess Guinevere, which I bought on the recommendation of a friend. She really liked it. Didn't realise there was so much religious stuff, but that's not a problem for me. It's just not my thing. This poetry I was not huge about. It didn't do much for me, but if it does stuff for you, that's fine. Happy to talk about that. We also have David Harrower's Blackbird. This one is a really controversial discussion piece in my class. Not a lot of people liked it because it was a weird sort of age dynamic between the 2 characters, a bit like Lolita, but without being in the perspective of Hubert. Haven't actually read Lolita, just going off what people have read and talked about it. But yeah, it was interesting. I like stuff that does push the boundaries a bit, and so yeah, I think it was a fun discussion to have. There's also a bunch of plays that we were given, as I said earlier, readers or printouts, and I don't know where they are. I mean, I'm sure I could find them if I was super desperate. If you ask, I can find them for you. Some of them are good, some of them are not good. It is what it is. And then also we have The Bleeding Tree by Angus Cerini. This is a fun, I say fun, bit like Blackbird, that sort of fun. Pushes the envelope a bit. It was Australian play. I don't mind Australian theatre. I prefer it a bit more to Australian sort of literature. I know, I'm a traitor, whatever. It is about, so the mother and the daughters welcome to a young man, the man of the house. I don't think he's too young. And they kill him, and then they have to dispose of the body. And it's like, does the town view him? Just turned off. I was listening to music earlier. Does the town help or hinder, like, dealing with the body? And it's fun and it's discursive. But you also get, as part of the creative writing degree, you do 2 editing subjects, which is editing foundation, in which your textbook is the Chicago Style Guide. I had the 6th edition. I'm not sure where it is. I had it last semester because I had a second year editing class to do, which is new. It'll turn up. But you also read the Subversive editor for the second year class, which is actually written by someone who works for the Chicago, like designing the Chicago Style Guide, and it's more about working as an editor in the real world as opposed to just doing a lot of freelance editing for your mates at uni, which is what I did. I looked over my mate's thesis. You know, I'm happy to do it. I get a weird thrill out of doing editing. Bit weird. And then 3rd year, you do some fun subjects. You do one which is called genre and form. The genres, usually they alternate between kids YA and contemporary fiction, mostly because that's what the faculty members usually write and know much about. You also do 2 courses which are with the whole creative arts student cohort, which are called professional practice and then contemporary theory and research practice. So the research practice, you actually do a mini thesis, whereas professional practice is like working in the creative industry. And then for creative writing, you also get to do a major project. For me, it's the first 5,000 words of your novel. If you're doing a script, it's like 10 pages, like 10 minutes of your TV show, I think, or your movie. And then you also do writing across borders, which is about writing across different borders of literature. So we looked at poetry where it's got like the title is actually the last line or the first line. So for that one, we did Fox 8 by George Saunders, which is from the perspective of a fox. So there's language that, you know, like human is spelled human, Y-U-M-A-N, because it's the fox. This was a really fun book. It's really short. I'd recommend it to anyone who reads more or less. I think that's all of them from that class, mostly because there was a lot of short stories and printouts and stuff. For genre and form, we did The Natural Way of Things by Charlotte Wood. This one was fantastic. I'm going to censor myself, not to use ad rev. It is just utterly fantastic. It's this great dystopic look at the bush, because Australia has a lot of bush, so it does influence a lot of our writing, which is honestly a good thing. So it's a gripping, starkly imaginative exploration of contemporary misogyny and corporate control and what it means to be hunted and hunted. So these women are rounded up and they're socially outcast. They're misbehaved as deemed by society, a highly misogynistic, dystopic society, and they're sent to this re-education camp. And it's all about what is femininity, and it was just a really eye-opening look at that. We also did The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. I got this really cool edition. I don't remember why, but it looks cool, apart from this Bridget Clay sticker, which I might take off. This one also has illustrations at the back, like in the notes from the Jew that lives in Lysol's basement. I'd not read this before this class, but I did know the twist, which was a bit of a shame. But I still enjoyed it nonetheless, and I thought it was a really, really good book. I haven't watched the film, not sure if I want to watch the film. I've heard so-so things about it. For this class as well, we also did Jasper Jones by Craig Silvey. First reading this, my initial actual contribution to the class was Jasper Jones, who's Charlie Buckton is the titular character. So this is set in the 60s Australia. And this boy, Jasper Jones, comes up to his window and he's like, "Oh, hey dude, I've got a problem." So it's all about what the problem is. It deals with race and family and small towns and all that sort of stuff. I thought Charlie Buckton was about as good a character as Holden Caulfield, because I'd read Catcher in the Rye for the first time around this time. Thinking back, Holden Caulfield's a lot better character. I just found Charlie just had no drive. He didn't do anything. He didn't act. He was just reacting the whole time. But I think it's a really interesting novel, and I think it's good for people who are familiar with Australian history. And I think it needs to be told, like, especially because you get a lot of people who don't know a lot about Australian history, especially the darker sides of race relations, especially with Indigenous. Like, when you get to uni, you get people who don't know about the border war stuff when they're doing a history class, which is just a real. It's not great. And then for the major project, while you're also writing, you also have to read a bunch as well. So you do Sign by Colin Dray. This is about a boy who gets an experimental operation, which means he can't speak. So he is trapped in a car with his with his sister, and then his aunt, who kidnaps his sister and himself. So he's unable to talk as they have a road trip way across the bottom half of Australia. It was a really interesting book. It was longlisted for a prize. The guy was talking about that. We had the author come as a lecture because he's friends with some of the people on the faculty. And it's fun. You know, that's pretty much it. It's fun. We also have Flight of Birds by Joshua Lobb. Joshua Lobb is a lecturer at UOW and a tutor. I've had him personally. Good guy. So this is 12 stories about climate change and birds, written as like one story. It's like a 12-part one big story thing. He also wrote an essay at the back, deconstructing his work, which is good, as opposed to getting people who are assuming what the work is about, which is not always a good thing. This has got mixed responses from people I've talked with. I enjoyed it. It's pretty much, if you like that sort of stuff, you'll like it. If you don't, you don't. The essay is, well, it's academia. And if you know Josh Lobb, it is Josh Lobb. We also have Welcome to Orphan Claw by Marley Jane Ward. This was not my favourite, I'll be honest with you. It was a really weird sort of dystopia, where it's very much about paternalism or like obsessive parenting, where all the kids are locked up in these shelters where they are looked after by adults. There's no sort of autonomy, and there's like a rebel movement. I think there's 2 more. My friend has read them. I don't know if I will. I wasn't too impressed by it. We also got to read some selected short stories of Lydia Davis. I read the stories that we had to prescribe to. I can't remember off the top of my head by now. It was a while ago. I enjoyed them. I thought they were pretty cool. Some of them were better than other ones, but again, it's a short story collection that is part and parcel for what it is. And then the last one we had was Far Away by Carol Churchill. And I think this is my favourite of the texts that I had to read for the creative writing major project, apart from all the wonderful projects of the people in my class. It was just it had very absurdist elements, while also like pushing the fringe of dystopia and what the future could hold. There's stuff about totalitarianism, and it was really quite fascinating. So that is every book I've read, book and short stories that I've had to read for my creative writing degree. I would do the same for my history and archaeology degrees, but it's mostly a bunch of historiography or 1 book, 2 books, like for the whole class, because you do a lot of more evidence-based stuff. But if you want to, let me know. Otherwise, I'm thinking about doing a bookshelf tour. Yeah, see you next week.